every claim for improvement in the game over time comes down to an issue like that. The players of today do something that the players of 30 years ago didn't do and couldn't do, but also the players of 30 years ago did things that players today don't do. So I'm not convinced that I'm not convinced that any 2021 team. I'm convinced that they would totally dominate a team from 1921. I'm convinced they would probably beat a team from 1971, but I don't see it as being a one-sided competition.
The only thing I'll throw into that equation is that there has been expansion in baseball. Right? The number of teams has increased, and just because, if you have the best talent spread on 32 teams versus 25 teams, for example, you're going to have a little bit of a watering down, right? The average hitter will be worse. The average pitcher would be worse. So how would that factor into comparing different eras of baseball?
Well, that's a really good question, and it depends on where you come down on this issue. And that is, are major league players because of innate athleticism, or because combined with their natural athleticism, they've learned how to play the game at that level? And I mostly believe that they are at that level because they have learned how to play at that level. I think there are actually a substantial number of people who have the athletic ability, the reflexes, the innate ability to play at that level, but whose careers ended somewhere because they ran out of chances. And because I believe that, and this is what I have done studies about that, which are hard to explain and hard to justify, but they tend to suggest that the effects of the first expansion in 1961-62 actually played out within a few years. They probably played out by 1968. However, the effects of the second expansion in 1969, when baseball went from, baseball in a decade, in a period of 10 years, went from 16 teams to 24, right? And that's a big expansion. And because of that, the effects of the second expansion were much bigger and took much longer. It took much longer for baseball to get back to the level where it had been post-expansion. At least that's my belief.
Right. Let's move on to a couple of mailbag questions that our listeners gave in. Let's start with Pat's question, and he's asking, do you have any rule changes that you think would improve the game of baseball?
There are a lot of things. There are a lot of things you could do that wouldn't ruin the game. Those wouldn't be favored by the commissioner. No, just kidding. I'm actually starting to soften on the designated runner in the 10th inning. I thought I hated it at first, and I'm starting to accept it. The 7 inning doubleheaders, I'm never going to get there. I think there are rules that definitely need to be there that aren't there. For example, no pitcher should be allowed to stand on the mound and throw repeatedly to first base. It's a waste of everybody's time, and it doesn't make any sense to say that the pitcher is only allowed to make three bad throws to home to the batter, and then on the fourth one he loses the contest and the batter goes to first. But if he wants to stand on the mound and make 11 bad throws to first base, well, that's fine. It's not fine. It doesn't make any sense. So that's one. I would. I'm not really in favor of clocks, But for example, what we can call the Gary Sanchez rule, the rule that limits how often a catcher can trundle out to the mound and count his fingers. That's been a very good rule, and it's just been 4 or 5 years, and everybody accepts it universally, right? It's kind of hard to imagine baseball being played without it anymore. But there has to be some sort of limit on batters being granted timeout when the pitcher is ready to pitch. That's the biggest thing that could be done that would easily make the game move at a more realistic pace.
Right, interesting suggestions here. Question from Scotty. He asks, how is the your pitcher's game score statistic holding up? Would you have any revisions if creating in a statistic in today's bullpen-heavy environment? What would you change?
But several people have suggested different ways of doing it, right? So I'll leave the amendments up to them. It's held up remarkably well over time. I mean, the average is 50 pretty much. In the 1960s, actually goes up to 52 or something. And it's around 50 in the steroid era. It actually goes down to 48 and a half or something. But it's about the average. It held up remarkably well over time. And I'm comfortable with it. And, I mean, everything I've done, somebody else has come up with a better way to do it, or what they claim is a better way to do it. And I'm not going to argue with them. If you have a better way to do it, well, sure. But I'm also not going to revise my own method.
Yeah, but I'll add to that. What I like about your work is it's simple concepts and simple things. And sure,
Right.
There's a better formula where you add 0.2 of this and you factor in this, and that gets you a little bit more exact. But that's not what baseball statistics is about. It's about the simplicity. I mean, going back to the runs created, OBP times total bases. That's such a simple way to put things, and it gets you 85% of the way there. I like the simplicity in what you do.
That's exactly right, Ariel. I do strongly prefer simple ideas to complicated ones, and I argue that that's one of the biggest barriers to sabermetrics becoming more easily accepted by the guys who call into talk shows. Is you have to keep, if you want people to understand what you're saying, you have to keep your ideas on a level that the human mind can retain them and possess them.
Yeah, no, exactly. A little bit about you in terms of what you're doing what are you doing right now, and what do you hope to accomplish in baseball personally during the next 5 years, let's say?
What I did today, we had a 2-hour meeting about the handbook planning meeting. We published the Bill James Baseball Handbook. I've published it every year since late 1980s, and so you have it now takes as long to have a meeting to plan it as it did to write the book and create the book in the origin. That's an overstatement, but everything gets more complicated over time. The study I'm working on, I'll tell you this: people say that when a pitcher has to make several starts in the postseason, has to pitch an extra 20 innings, that has a carryover effect for the next year. I promise you, in the World Series, somebody will say that on the air. But I don't know whether it's true or not. So I'm in the middle of a study in which I will, try to identify the hardest working postseason pitchers of the last 25 years. B, by similarity scores, match each one of those with a very similar pitcher who didn't pitch in the postseason. And C, try to see whether there's any carryover effect that you can observe. The guys who work hard in the postseason, if they have any more tendency to break down the next year.
No, that's great stuff. And I look forward to reading and diving into that research. So thanks for that. Once again, thank you so much, Bill, for coming on. You can follow Bill on Twitter at Bill James Online, and of course you can take a look at his website, BillJames.com, I believe. And anything else you want to tell the listeners what's going on? Anything you want to plug?
No, I don't think I have anything else to plug. I do appreciate you having me on, and I'd be happy to talk to you anytime.
Thank you. The honor is really ours.
So much.
Yeah, no, thank you. All right, well, we'll be back here in just a short moment with our waiver wire and pitcher previews and injuries from Ruvain. Once again, thank you so much, Bill James. We'll see you in just a bit. All right, we're back here on the Beat the Shift podcast presented by Fangraphs. Very honored to have on the legendary, the great Bill James on the show. Talking about, I can't believe that. Well, first of all, I can't believe that I beat Bill James in a baseball contest. That was pretty cool, Ruvain.
I can't believe you brought up the fact about your softball with him. Also, I can't believe that either. So.
It's funny, but we're asking the question about his favorite statistic, and like that's the one that I used from him and that I worked hard on altering. And I like to talk about my softball league, and I don't know, it just fit. And lo and behold, he said that was interesting to him. So I'm very impressed there. All right, on to our waiver wire segment. Could be an interesting one. You got all the trade deadline. This show is being recorded on a Thursday night. The trade deadline is Friday, so there might be other people to pick up because of that in between. But we'll do our best for the knowledge we have. Ruvain, why don't you start first? Who's a couple of waiver wire guys to pick up?
All right, the first guy I'm going to mention is Brian Anderson from the Marlins. He's only 36% owned in CBS. Garrett Cooper's out for the year. Brian Anderson can play almost everywhere. He's played first in the past. He can play third. He can play the outfield. He's only eligible at third this year. But so far for this year, he's batting .264, 5 homers, 15 RBIs, and 4 stolen bases. Now, over the past couple of last week or so, he's hitting over .350. So he's a guy, if he's still available in any of your leagues, he is going to be eligible at third base right now. He may get eligibility later in the outfield, but we'll see about that. And another guy I wanted to mention who I was thinking about not mentioning because of the trade that the Mariners just made to get Diego Castillo was Drew Steckenrider from the Mariners. Drew Steckenrider would have been the next guy up if Paul Sewell would have failed as Mariners closer. Now, even though he's not going to be the closer, and even though Drew Steckenrider is going to be one of the setup men again, he has been very, very good this year. And if you want someone to stabilize your ERA and WHIP, he's the guy to go to. In 39 innings, he got 41 strikeouts, 3 saves, a 2.08 ERA, a .97 WHIP, and he's only 4% owned in CBS. Now, if you can't stomach any of the 2-star pitchers that you have, he's a guy that if you can get for free, nobody's going to want him, and you can plug him in there, and he can help with your ratios for a week or two.
All right, so I'm going to mention 2 batters, and then I think we really do have to talk about closers, so we'll do that separately. But first, let's start with Rowdy Tellez, only 10% owned on CBS, 10 for his last 24, 4 walks, 3 homers in that span. He's a guy who's heating up, trying to find success with a new team. They brought in some reinforcements with Eduardo Escobar being traded there. I think Rowdy Tellez is somebody that you might want to pick up, somebody who is, people were high on before the season started. I think the change of scenery could help. How about Rougned Odor on the Yankees? 17% owned on CBS, 3 homers in his last 2 weeks. He's batting .286 over that span. And now, look at that lineup. You got Joey Gallo, Anthony Rizzo traded there, Aaron Judge, Stanton. I mean, look at that power in the team. And Rougned Odor, under-owned player, somebody that if you need a second baseman, he can fill in the spot. Closers. I think we should really talk about this separately. Are there any, let's fill in between you and me, some closer situations that are now open that you might want to throw a dart on who the next closer is going to be in this window right after the trade deadline?
Well, I think you have to look at the teams that are trading away the closers. Now, one of the teams that traded away one of their closers was Tampa. They just traded Diego Castillo. Are you buying any of their closers right now who are just to pick up saves? I don't think you are. I think you're picking them up for the ratios, but you just have to still stay away and treat it the way you were treating it before.
Well, I mean, we talked about the Tampa Bay situation that, sure, there is no closer, but everyone is getting a share. And if you have a really good pitcher and a share, you're getting a third of the closer job. I like Andrew Kittredge in the bullpen. I first of all, he got a 1.43 ERA, .85 WHIP. He has been phenomenal this year. He has 6 wins, but now some save opportunities may open up. I can really see him getting a nice third of the share of saves. Again, you're not going to get more than that on the Rays, but that's just going to increase his value. And I have him on a couple of teams, even in some shallow leagues. I would really consider Andrew Kittredge. What about, look at poor Paul Sewell. 3 days ago, he had no value. And then they traded Graveman. Oh, all of a sudden, he's the closer. Bada bing, bada boom. And 2 seconds later, Diego Castillo, his value just plummeted. Crazy. Washington. They traded Brad Hand. Do you see it as Kyle Finnegan to pick up? Tanner Rainey? Are you staying away from the situation?
I don't know. I think Wander Suero has the best profile for it because he has a very dominating fastball. I think he's going to be the guy to go for, but I'd probably stay away from anyone there because they're not going to have that many save opportunities, I think. And listen, Brad Hand was traded to Toronto, Brad Hand has not been good recently. He's been giving up a lot of runs. I wouldn't go ahead and start dropping Jordan Romano just yet. I think if you have Jordan Romano, I think you hold on because remember Brad Hand's a lefty. They may just